Good morning, all. Indian Medical College welcomes you all to this online class. In today's session, we have Dr. Devendra Sachdev with us. He is having plenty of teaching experience and passion for teaching. He'll be taking class on acute myocardial infarction today. Good morning, sir, and welcome, sir. It's a great pleasure to have you here with us, sir. Dear viewers, if you have any doubts, please type them in the comment section. Your queries will be clarified by him at the end of this session. Thank you, sir. You can start the presentation now.
Okay, so all the students, today we will discuss about acute myocardial infarction. We will try to understand the very basic things, and we will try to understand what actually is acute myocardial infarction and the particular approach, how you are going to treat a particular patient. So everything we will try to understand in very simple way, and the main emphasis will be not to remember those hi-fi words, like the way you have seen the movie Three Idiots, and where the very basic knowledge, the very basic understanding, the humanitarian touch we should have. And let us just start. They have given me right now 1 hour, but acute myocardial infarction to teach completely will take long, many hours, at least 5-6. But at least this is an introductory class, and let us proceed for the management of a particular patient who has come to you in emergency with acute myocardial infarction. Just try to understand everything in very small stories. You can make it out, and so that you remember forever. This class, you can take it as a joyful class rather than remembering very long words or terminology or definition. Instead of that, we will try to build up in a very basic way. First, let us see. This is a heart. See what happens. For some reason or the other, the blood supply to the myocardium is interrupted. The myocardium, because it should get oxygen. Once it gets oxygen enough, it will be able to pump, and the blood supply to the different tissues will be there, and every cell will be able to get oxygen. So for some reason or one or the other, just 1 second. Suppose for some reason or the other, the blood supply to the myocardium is interrupted and the myocardium is not able to get the oxygen. So what is going to happen? The heart, it will not be able to contract forcefully. What can happen? The blood pressure can fall after myocardial infarction. The blood pressure can rise also, and the blood pressure can be normal also after myocardial infarction. We will see it later on, everything point by point. But suppose if for some reason the myocardium oxygen is being interrupted, the blood pressure falls. What is our blood pressure? It's around 120 by 80 millimeter mercury. So this is the normal blood pressure. What does 120 indicate? It is the force by which the heart is contracting. Suppose heart is contracting forcefully, then the systolic blood pressure. The systolic blood pressure is indicative of how well the myocardium is contracting. If the heart is contracting forcefully, and if the contraction increases, the systolic blood pressure further increases. This blood pressure fluctuates. Sometimes when you are in rest, the pressure is normal. When you are doing activity, pressure rises because oxygen demand by the tissue increases. Say for example, various emotion and thoughts, they are coming in the mind. Sometimes in the morning you feel that the day is so good. Sometimes you feel that you should not live in the world. So in our body, so many thoughts are coming. There is a line in Hindi, लहरों की तरह यादें तूफान उठाती हैं. Now what actually happens? This systolic blood pressure, suppose it drops and it becomes less than 90 millimeter. Then what happens? There will be no pressure. Pressure will be very less. So different tissues can die because they will not get oxygen. Why it happens? Because the heart, it has got an important ability. What is that ability? It is able to contract. So if the force of contraction decreases, why it decreases? Because it does not get the oxygen, it did not get the required oxygen. So this particular myocardium was not perfused, it got necrosed, it was dead. So the heart has lost the pumping ability. So once the heart has lost the particular pumping ability, what actually has happened? Different tissues, because of very less perfusion, they might die. And if all the cells, the death has occurred, in the medical terminology, we say it as necrosis. So if the necrosis has occurred, then we cannot do much. Medical science cannot revert it. So whatever you have to do, you have to do it urgently. So one important drastic complication which can happen after acute myocardial infarction is pump failure. See, for cardiac condition, what we are doing, we are just doing the electrocardiogram, ECG. What ECG says that from SA node the impulses are coming or not. Why? Because these impulses are necessary. Once these signals come, it generates, because of these particular impulses, the heart is able to contract. But ECG does not depict, does not say anything about heart or the myocardium contraction. So what is the investigation which we will do so as to know whether the heart is contracting forcefully or not? The particular investigation which we are doing is echocardiography. So this is the investigation that has to be done, echocardiography. See what happens, just try to understand one thing. In the left ventricle, the blood is accumulating. Once the left ventricle contracts, left ventricle, because of the force of the contraction, will eject the blood. Suppose 100 ml has accumulated in the left ventricle. Now when the left ventricle contracts, one thing we must understand, all the blood is not being ejected. How much blood is being ejected is around 60%, 60 to 70%. That means what? 30 ml blood is still confided in the walls of the left ventricle. Even though the left ventricle contracts forcefully, even if the left ventricle tries its level best, still then all the blood is not being ejected. Some amount of the blood might be left in the left ventricle. Similarly, what happens whenever the bladder contracts, urinary bladder, all the urine does not go out. There is some amount of the urine which is accumulated in the bladder when the patient has voided the urine. How much is that? That is around, that must be less than 100 ml. In medical terminology, we say post-voidal residual volume. Similarly, in the left ventricle, some amount of blood is being left. So this amount of the blood which goes out, this is called as, you remember this particular terminology because it is very important, that is LVEF, left ventricle ejection fraction. This particular left ventricle ejection fraction, you can get it when you are doing echocardiography, and this must be more than 60% in a normal individual. Now what actually is going to happen? The most drastic complication of acute myocardial infarction is once the blood supply to the myocardium is being interrupted, it is not able to contract forcefully. So our heart has got an important power. What is that particular power? The power of contraction, the pumping ability. So if the pumping ability of the myocardium decreases, why it decreases? Say this particular myocardium, it gets necrosed, it has died. Why? Because it was not getting oxygenation. Why it was not getting oxygenation? Because the blood supply was interrupted because of coronary vessel thrombosis, because of the coronary blood vessel blockage. And when it happens, when the left ventricle, one of the wall, it gets necrosed, it has died. Only the remaining left ventricle will be able to contract, and it will not be able to generate a good amount of force. Finally, what will happen? The patient's ejection fraction might fall. How much it will be? Sometimes less than even 30%. So what problem the patient will have? If the left ventricle is not contracting forcefully now, it has lost the ejection fraction, LVEF has decreased. How you came to know LVF, LVEF? By doing the echocardiography. So if my left ventricle ejection fraction is just say 25% or 30%, now what will happen? When I will try to run, or when I will try to do some climbing, or whenever I want to do some physical work, what will happen? My left ventricle will not contract forcefully. I will be having fatigue, or immediately, even if a small distance I am running, I will feel like breathlessness. So the important complication of myocardial infarction, if it happens, is a loss of left ventricle ejection fraction, because of which what is going to happen? The rest of the life, the patient's condition will be miserable. Why? Because the left ventricle now is not contracting forcefully. You don't have any medicine in the world which can make this myocardium regenerate again, which can make this myocardium work again if the necrosis or if the tissue has already become dead. And this particular problem the patient will carry throughout of the life. That means what? Whenever a patient comes to you who has got acute myocardial infarction, what you do is you always want to do one investigation. Which investigation is that one? That is echocardiography. So this is one of the complications which we must understand. That is the reason why whenever there is a vascular blockage, whenever the blood supply to the myocardium is interrupted, if suppose you are taking tea or you are talking to your friend, not even 1 second you will wait. You need to do as early as possible. You need to be on guard. You need to be quick enough. Immediately what you have to do? You have to do certain measures so as to open this particular blood vessel. We will try to understand how you are going to open this particular blood vessel so that our heart gets the oxygen. So what are those methodologies to open this particular blood vessel which has get blocked? But first we will know why it has get blocked. And what is the most important complication which can happen is the loss of left ventricle contraction power, the pumping ability. And that is the reason why any patient who comes to you who is having past episode of myocardial infarction, say 3 years before, 4 years before, immediately you want to see the echocardiography report. And in the echocardiography report, what attention you will like to make it on? You will like to focus on immediately how much is the left ventricle ejection fraction, LVEF. Let us proceed slowly one by one, and we will try to understand many other things. Another important thing, suppose this is the heart. Now what has happened? This blood supply to the myocardium is interrupted. The moment the myocardium blood supply is being interrupted, the heart started behaving in his own way. What does it mean? For example, when we are children, whatever our parents say, we will try to obey that. But once we grow up, what happens? We say to our parents, now I am earning and whatever I want to do, I will do. You are no one. And many of us are having that tendency. Similarly, what happens? This particular left ventricle, it gets oxygen supply. Today the oxygen supply the left ventricle did not get. So it started behaving in a notorious way, some idiotic way. What it was? Earlier from SA node, the impulses come to AV node. From the AV node, the impulses were coming to the ventricle. What was the rhythm? And we will take some other class and we will try to understand these various rhythms which are generated in our body. The normal sinus rhythm, ventricle flutter, ventricle fibrillation. What are the ECG changes in myocardial infarction? Everything we will try to understand later on in the subsequent classes. Don't worry. For the time being, try to understand that this is the normal sinus rhythm. This is P wave, QRS wave, this is T wave. Even if you don't know anything about the ECG, do not worry. Even when I completed my MBBS, I was not knowing. But when I understood, then I realized that ECG is very easy to understand. We will see it later on, but today let us proceed for the management of myocardial infarction. This P wave, why it is? Because of auricle contraction. This particular QRS wave, it is because of ventricle contraction. This T wave, it is because of ventricle relaxation. So just try to remember, auricle relaxation is not being depicted in the ECG. Why it is going down, why it is going up, do not worry now. Just try to remember the basics. This particular wave, the first wave is the auricle contraction. This QRS wave is the ventricle contraction, and this T wave is the ventricle relaxation. This rhythm is called as a normal sinus rhythm. Just try to understand one more thing. A normal sinus rhythm does not mean that the patient is normal. And for the time being, just try to understand this particular thing. Now what happens? The moment the blood supply to the myocardium is being interrupted, sometimes it might happen, the heart tissue will act as an ectopic focus. What do we mean by ectopic focus? It itself will start generating the impulses. Now what is going to happen? Once this myocardium starts generating the impulses, the rhythm may sometimes become like this. Now this particular thing, all of you students, can I do it like this one, like this? So this particular rhythm, whenever you come across, it is called as ventricle tachycardia, ventricle flutter, ventricle fibrillation. Okay, not much difference in between them, but just try to understand a wide QRS complex. It depicts ventricle flutter. Now what does it mean? Suppose my ventricle is just beating like this one. Suppose one student is there from the morning to evening, he is dancing, not doing any work at all. Now what is going to happen? He will not be able to concentrate in the study at all. So what you will like to do? First, he should focus his attention on the study. Then he will be able to understand. Similarly, when the ventricle is contracting like this, it is vibrating very fast. So all the energy will be dissipated in this vibration. The ventricle will not be generating sufficient contraction. So whenever there is ventricle flutter or fibrillation, in simple medical terminology, means that the ventricle is vibrating, doing a dance like this one. Now it will not be contracting forcefully. So if it doesn't contract forcefully, the amount of the blood ejected by left ventricle will be very less. Different tissues will not be able to get the particular oxygen which they require. And when the ventricle is fibrillating like this one, the ventricle contraction is very less, the amount of blood ejected is very less, and if all my tissues, they do not get the oxygen, the patient's death can occur. So what thing you should remember? The commonest cause of death in a patient who has got myocardial infarction is because of ventricle flutter or ventricle fibrillation or VT. Why it happens? Because the ventricle is not able to contract forcefully. It is just vibrating. So just remember the particular line. The commonest cause of death in a patient who is having myocardial infarction is because of ventricle fibrillation, and thus what we say is the amount of blood, that is the terminology which we are using is stroke volume. The stroke volume will decrease and the patient's death can occur. So one important complication after heart attack is decrease in left ventricle ejection fraction. Second thing, which is the commonest cause of death in a patient of myocardial infarction, ventricle tachycardia and ventricle fibrillation. How the ECG goes, draw it like this one. It is a wide QRS complex. So whenever you come across an ECG like this one, what will be the blood pressure of the patient? All the students, please tell whether it will be on the higher side or whether it will be less. See, ventricle is not contracting forcefully at all. The blood ejected is very less. There will be either no pulse or pulse will be feeble. We will discuss those things later on. And the blood pressure many times will not be recordable. So in a patient who has got ventricle fibrillation, the blood pressure you cannot record. It is a dying emergency condition. We will just try to understand all those things, how you are going to save the life of a patient. There is a course, and if I get the opportunity to teach you basic life support and the advanced cardiovascular life support, in that particular setting, we will see what we are going to do. But just try to remember, when the ventricle fibrillation occurs, you have got very less time because the oxygen supply to the different tissues has been cut off. If you don't do anything, or if you are not hurrying up, and if all the organs, they have died, in a medical terminology, the word which we are using is, if all the tissues, necrosis has already set in, then the medical science cannot revert it back. If the patient becomes all right, then it is some other power which is beyond medical science, but a medical science fails once there is a multi-organ failure because of decreased oxygenation. So in a ventricle fibrillation, there is a dying medical emergency. What we are using is a defibrillator machine. And how we use defibrillator, what are the various joules which we give, when you need to give it. This particular thing we will see in some other class, that is the basic and the advanced cardiovascular life support. So two important things you have understood, that once the blood supply is being interrupted, there can be pump failure or there can be ventricle tachycardia fibrillation, and fibrillation is a dying medical emergency. This is a thing you must understand. Let us proceed further. Now see what happens. My heart is over here and here the lungs are. Now the blood is coming from the lungs to the left auricle by the means of pulmonary vessel. It comes to the left auricle, then it comes to the left ventricle, and when the left ventricle contracts, the blood goes out. Suppose the blood supply to the left ventricle is being interrupted because of the coronary vessel blockage. The left ventricle is not contracting forcefully, so the blood will accumulate here. Suppose one car has stopped. What is going to happen to the car which is behind the particular car? It will stop. The third car will stop. So every car will stop because the first one has stopped. So once the left ventricle, the blood accumulates, the blood will accumulate in the left auricle, it will accumulate in the pulmonary vessel. Now the blood, because of the high pressure, see in the blood vessel, two pressures are there if you are knowing physiology very well. One pressure is the hydrostatic pressure, because of which the fluid moves out. The other pressure is the osmotic pressure, which is because of albumin or sodium, because of which the fluid is being retained. So here in the pulmonary vessels, what is going to happen? Because of increase in the pressure, hydrostatic pressure, the fluid will move out and the fluid will accumulate between the alveoli. So once the fluid accumulates between the alveoli, what is going to happen? There will be no oxygen exchange, or the oxygen exchange will decrease. Patient will feel breathlessness. And what is going to happen? Because of decreased oxygenation. That is the reason why all the students must have one important instrument with them. We'll try to show you later on. This instrument is called as a pulse oximeter. And the oxygen saturation, the pulse oximeter, the oxygen saturation should be more than 94 or more than 95. And nowadays, corona prevalence is there, and many times when we know the patient is having breathlessness, the first thing which you want to test is the oxygen saturation. In simple terminology, for the time being, try to understand that 1 gram of hemoglobin, it carries 1.34 ml oxygen. So whenever the oxygen supply decreases, suppose the oxygen saturation decreases less than 90, less than 88, then within seconds the patient will die. So any patient coming to you in emergency, always we check the oxygen saturation. This oximeter, it is very cheap. Hardly it costs 1000 or 1100 rupees in Amazon. All of you must have this particular instrument with yourself. Okay, we will just try to understand many more things about the pulse oximeter later on. But for the time being, try to remember, whenever the patient has got pulmonary edema, the fluid has accumulated in the between the alveoli. Why it has accumulated between the alveoli? Because from the blood vessel it has moved out. Why it has moved out? Because there is increase in the hydrostatic pressure. See, medical science is very fascinating when you understand one line by line. And why it has accumulated over here? Because there is a pump failure. Why there is a pump failure? Because there is a coronary vessel blockage. So one of the important complications of heart attack is the patient can have pulmonary edema. And if the patient is having a pulmonary edema, breathlessness, the fluid is accumulating between the alveoli. Once you auscultate from the stethoscope, you will get here creps. What do we mean by creps? Many times you have seen the two things, they are sticking it. Once you are taking it out, some sound comes. So this particular sound is being reflected over here. And you will be able to auscultate. And if the saturation is very less, all this particular fluid, you need to take it out from the lungs as soon as possible. You have to use with diuretics. What are those diuretics? What is their mechanism? What are their adverse effects like furosemide? We will see in some other class. But for the time being, try to understand when the heart is failing, one of the important complications can be acute pulmonary edema. That again may be a dying medical emergency. Whether all these things will occur to all the patients of myocardial infarction, that is not necessary. But one thing is there, if a patient has got an heart attack, any of these complications can occur and you need to prepare yourself because you do not know what complications can occur. That means what? If a patient's rhythm is changing, he has got VT or VF, you need to be ready with the defibrillator machine because you must know it because the blood supply to the different tissue has been cut off. Secondly, if there is a pump failure, you need to do something accordingly. If there is a blood vessel blockage, you need to open this particular coronary vessel as soon as possible. Every second counts. And if the patient has got a pulmonary edema, you need to be equipped with the emergency drugs. Otherwise, the patient might die within some few seconds. With this particular basic concept, let us proceed further. Suppose this heart is over here and a coronary vessel blockage has occurred. My blood pressure, which was 120 by 80, because of decreased vascular supply, the blood pressure has fallen to 80 by 60. So you know the pressure has fallen. So what should be done? Because the blood supply to the different tissues has been cut off, it is decreasing. You know that at any cost, the blood supply to the different tissues should not interrupt. Why? Because the multi-organ failure can occur. So what you will try to do, if you are knowing there is a coronary vessel blockage, we will see how you are knowing it step by step. When you know there is a coronary vessel blockage, definitely you will focus your attention on the particular drugs which will open this particular blood vessel. That means what? You will try to open this blood vessel as soon as possible. But at the same time, you know that the opening of this blood vessel might take some time. Until then, what happens? Because of the decreased blood pressure, all the organs might die. So if all the organs, death has occurred, in Hindi we say, आपने जिंदगी में सब कुछ गंवा दिया. यदि आपने मंजिल पे पहुंचे और सब लोग खत्म हो गए तो क्या पाया? Similarly, if the blood supply has decreased, my liver, my kidney, my brain, everything has died. And then I am opening this particular blood vessel, what is the advantage? You are saving the heart at the cost of what? All the organs have died. So this thing we must understand, that when you are focusing your attention to open this particular blood vessel, at the same time your attention will be also there, what is the existing blood pressure? Because the opening of this particular coronary vessel might take some time. Until then, you do not want all the organs to die. So what can be done? Suppose one horse is there, okay, the horse is wounded, like the one which Rani Lakshmi Bai was driving. Now the wounded horse is there, she is there on the horse. It was 1857, if you remember the history. The English people, they were coming from behind, those from England and all those people. So what, she could not stop. She could not do the dressing of the horse, even if she loved her horse, but she wanted the horse to run at any cost. Because if she stops, the pupil will come from the behind. Similarly, this particular heart, it is wounded. Why it is wounded? Because the blood supply is not there. So this particular heart, because it is wounded, it is not able to contract. That is the reason why the pressure has fallen. Now, you will take some time to open the blood vessel. Whether you will be able to open or not, that is a different thing. So when the blood pressure has fallen, what I will do? Suppose this is a horse. It is not running. It is wounded. Despite that, if the enemies are there coming from behind, I will like to beat the horse. That means what? You have got certain drugs. Just remember these names. The first drug is noradrenaline. Okay, all of you should remember noradrenaline. Second, just try to understand the topic. The notes I will give to all the students. Don't worry. Okay? Noradrenaline. Second is dopamine. Third is dobutamine. Okay, all of you just enumerate these names: noradrenaline, dopamine, dobutamine. What is their mechanism action? What are their differences? We will see them in some other class. But these particular drugs, they will go and will sit on the beta-1 receptors on the heart. Just try to remember, है ना, जो भी pictures बनती हैं, फिल्में बनती हैं, सब दिल की फिल्में बनती हैं, है ना. Everyone says the movie on heart. So just remember, दिल की बातें एक नंबर की बातें. So just try to remember in this particular fashion, the receptors which are located on the heart are beta-1. Okay? The neighbor in the bronchioles, the receptors which are there, beta-2. You will not forget. Dil ki baatein, ek number ki baatein. So the receptors which are there in the heart are beta-1. The receptors which are there on the bronchioles are beta-2. Now all these drugs, they will sit on the beta-1 receptors. So once the drugs sit on the beta-1 receptors, what is going to happen? I am beating the heart. I am beating the horse. The heart force of contraction will increase. How you will give these drugs? By IV infusion. We will see about these drugs. But because of the circumstances, there is no other way out. That is the reason why you have to use these drugs. And when you are using these drugs, they are going to increase the force of contraction. They are going to increase the heart rate. What is going to happen? The oxygen demand by the heart will increase. Suppose as a student, when you want to prepare for the examination for 16 hours, 18 hours, you need a good nourishment. You need food and breakfast again and again because you are working hard. So when you want the heart to contract forcefully, by using these drugs, they are actually beating the heart. The oxygen demand by the myocardium will further increase. So what is the most important drawback of these drugs is, it will further injure the heart. They will increase the oxygen demand. The tissue necrosis might occur. The oxygen supply, because already it has been interrupted, and if you are increasing the force of contraction further, the tissue might die further. So these drugs, the main important drawback will be chances of necrosis of the myocardium aggravates further. Or in briefly, what you will like to say, these drugs will increase the oxygen demand. So whenever you are treating a patient of myocardial infarction, all these drugs must be there in your emergency trolley. What other drugs should be there? The drug which you are using for the management of pulmonary edema, that is diuretic. For example, furosemide, it must be there with you in emergency trolley. Again, these drugs, in medical science, we say which family these drugs belong. They are sympathomimetic. They are inotropic agent. And what these drugs do, they will increase the force of contraction of the heart at the cost of what? At the cost of increased oxygen demand. So even though knowing the particular fact that these drugs might result in further necrosis or further worsening of the myocardial condition, despite that you don't have any other way out, because the blood pressure is less, you know the heart is injured, but you also want all the different tissues of the body that must be saved. So these are again the particular drugs which should be there with you in the emergency trolley. With this basic concept, let us just proceed further. Now again, heart is over here. Here there is a coronary blood vessel. Now we will try to understand what actually has happened. There is a blockage in the coronary vessel. So whenever the blood supply to the myocardium is not there, suppose what happens, suppose you are playing a football match, okay, in the ground. In the night, when suppose on that particular day you got injured, so what your mother will do? She will allow you to take particular rest. She will give you milk in the night, and she wants that you should sleep. You should take a comfortable rest because you are exhausted, because you are injured. Similarly, what happens when the blood supply to the myocardium is not there? The patient may have chest pain. The patient may have breathlessness. The patient may have palpitation, may have sweating. How the different myocardial, how in different ways the myocardial infarction will present, we will see it little bit later. But just try to remember, when the blood supply is being interrupted, suppose you are standing in the railway station and the train has come. The patient has got a chest pain. Chest pain could be because of many other reasons. It can be because of muscle injury. It could be because of acidity. Something wrong with the lungs. Some pleural infection can cause chest pain. So there are many, the chest pain can occur because of many other reasons also. But one of the reason is because of myocardial infarction. And you are going to diagnose it on the basis of ECG. What are the findings that you will get in the ECG? We will see in some other class. But for the time being, just try to understand. Suppose the train has come and the patient has got chest pain. He is standing here and his bogie is 2 bogies in front. What he will think, let me walk it, let me run. So when the patient runs or whenever the patient walks, what will happen? The upper limb, lower limb, different organs, they will require more oxygen. The heart has to pump more. Already the heart is injured. So what is going to happen? When the heart pumps more, it requires more oxygen. Already it is getting less oxygen supply. So the chances of necrosis of the myocardium aggravates further, increases further, and the patient might die. So any patient who has got chest pain, whenever there is slightest suspicion that the patient has got myocardial infarction, what thing you will like to do? You want the patient to take rest. I was in Tata Chemicals long before in Mithapur. There was one patient, he's got chest pain, secondary to myocardial infarction. He was referred to Jamnagar. So he was going in ambulance and he wanted to go to pass stool. Everyone told to him, just be there in the ambulance. We will give you all the container. You pass the stool over here. He told, no, I will go outside. He went by walking and believe me, he never came back. Why it happened? Because already different tissues, they require more oxygen. Whenever you are running, whenever you are walking. So whenever the patient who has got myocardial infarction, whenever he comes to you in emergency, you will not allow the patient to walk and go to ICU. How you are going to send the patient? You will send the patient in wheelchair. Similarly, this particular patient who has got particular chest pain, what you will want to do? You want the patient to take rest. You want the patient not to run. Why? Because the oxygen demand will increase. So these are the very basic things. Any patient who has got myocardial infarction or a chest pain, he should sit there only. No need to run, no need to walk at all. You can use the wheelchair even to take the patient from the casualty OPD to the wards or to the ICU. We'll go one by one, and now we are coming to the various drugs which you are going to use in the patient of myocardial infarction. Now see here, this is the heart and this is the coronary blood vessel. It is the coronary blood vessel is blocked. So what are the reasons why it has blocked? One by one we will see. The first thing is the fat has accumulated. We are taking oil and the cholesterol in there in our body. It can accumulate. In the medical terminology, we say it as atherosclerosis. So this is the first thing which can happen. So whenever you are taking diet, whenever you are taking a fatty diet, the fat might accumulate in the coronary blood vessel. This is the first thing, the first reason because of which there is a blockage in the coronary blood vessel. Say one day what has happened, this particular fat, somehow it gets detached from the wall. Now what happened, the blood which is flowing, the body thinks there is something wrong with the streamlined flow of the blood, and the platelets are there. From where the platelets are coming, all of you, it is being manufactured in the bone marrow. And what is the life of the platelets? Just 4 to 7 days. So in my body, the platelets are being formed. Why God has given us platelets? because any day if there is any injury, the platelets, they go and they adhere to the endothelium and they stop the bleeding. So my body, which is being made by the God, it has got the natural mechanism of stoppage of bleeding. And what is that? That is platelets. How much is the count of the platelets? If you remember, it should be between 1.5 to 4 lakhs. But just remember, even if the platelets are less than 1.5 lakh, we do not proceed for platelet transfusion unless and until the platelets decreases less than 50,000 and less than 20,000. So if some of you by chance, if the platelets are 1 lakh, do not worry much, okay? Because the platelet transfusions are indicated only when there is a drastic fall. Okay? We will see about the various platelets, the various roles the platelets play and what are the various drugs which has got antiplatelet actions later on. But for the time being, try to remember. So once there is a atherosclerosis, the platelets, they might get adhere and they may result in the blockage of coronary blood vessels. Now what happens? Why the platelets they have adhered? Because the blood is not flowing smoothly. So body thinks there is something wrong. The platelets which are being produced from the bone marrow, they are in the circulation and they are adhering over here. Further, what happens? There is a liver, you know, the largest organ in the body. It forms clotting factors. What is the life of the clotting factors? 48 hours, just 2 days. Just remember, 2 to 3 days. So all these clotting factors, what they will result? They will result in the formation of fibrin. Factor 12 will be activated, 11, 9, 10. So the fibrin will be formed. So again here, the body thinks, because see, whenever there is a bleeding, the platelets will adhere. Then what will happen? There will be a permanent plug, the formation of fibrin. If you remember, factor 12 will activated, then 11, then 9, then 10, then prothrombin to thrombin, then fibrinogen to fibrin. From where these clotting factors are coming, except calcium, they all come from the liver and they have got a very less half-life, just 2 days only. So the bleeding is being stopped in the body because of 2 reasons. Initial role played by platelet. The secondary role played by fibrin. Now what happens whenever the atherosclerosis is there? First the platelets, they get adhered. Then there is also a fibrin formation. So what you should remember, that whenever there is coronary vessel blockage, it is because of 3 different reasons. What are those 3 different reasons? The first thing is because of fat accumulation resulting in atherosclerosis. Secondly, there is platelets aggregation. Third, there is fibrin formation. That means what? Whenever you want to open this particular blood vessel, in medical terminology we say revascularization, or whenever you want to proceed for this, whenever you want to proceed to open the particular blood vessel, why you want to open it? We have already discussed, because you do not want the myocardium to die. Because if the myocardium necrosis has already occurred, necrosis in the medical terminology we say infarction. If the blood supply is interrupted but the tissue has not died, and if you revert it back, the myocardium might survive. This is called as ischemia, I-S-C-H-A-E-M-I-A. So there are two differences. Infarction means the tissue is already died. Ischemia means the blood supply has interrupted. So whenever the blood supply is interrupted, every second counts, and you want to open this particular blood vessel as soon as possible. How much time you have got? Less than 3 hours. The reason why, after 3 hours if you will open it, or some book says after 12 hours, then even if the blood supply is being restored, suppose one truck is there, someone's lower limb is beneath the truck. Now suppose if you are removing the lower limb after 12 hours, what is going to happen? The blood supply has already interrupted. It has become gangrenous, means there is no other way out. One has to do the amputation. So what you are going to do? If you are going to open this particular blood vessel or the vascular supply after 3 hours or after 12 hours, it will not be of any benefit. The reason why? Because the myocardium till then would have already died. it would have already necrosed. So you want to open it as early as possible, knowing the fact every second is important, and this is called as golden period. So just try to understand, in a patient who has got myocardial infarction, there is one terminology which we use that is called as the golden period. How much it should be? It should be preferably less than 3 hours, as early as possible, because myocardium salvage is important. This is called as myocardium salvageable therapy or a reperfusion therapy. Okay? Chalo, let us see one by one now. So this particular heart is over here. The blood supply has interrupted. The patient has come to you. Okay? He says, Doctor Saab, है ना, मुझे सीने में दर्द है. He says to you, I have got chest pain. He is having a breathlessness, palpitation. Without wasting time, you will proceed for ECG. How you take the ECG, we will see it later on. But believe me, this particular ECG, it should not be that it should be done by an ECG technician. Because as a student, you are knowing what is occurring in the body. So within seconds, within few seconds, you must know how to use the ECG machine. We will see it later on in critical care, how you use the ECG machine and how you take the ECG. So once you are doing the ECG, what changes you will get it. For the time being, just try to understand in the simpler way, various ECG findings in a very simple way. In some other class we will understand. But for the time being, this is the P wave which we have already discussed. This is a QRS, this is the T wave. Now the P wave will be coming, and what you will get something like this. This is called as ST segment elevation. See, this particular wave, it was going down. Now it is not going down, it is up. How to read the ST elevation, I will tell you later on. But just remember, whenever you are going to see or visualize any ECG, immediately your eyes will be running very fast to come across to see this particular change, whether there is ST elevation or not, and whether there is a T inversion or not. ST elevation and T wave inversion. If these findings are there, then chances are there that the patient has got myocardial infarction. How to interpret the ECG, we will see in subsequent class. So when the patient has got myocardial infarction and you are confirmed with the ECG, you need to do everything very quickly. So what should be done? Let us go one by one. The first drug which you are using will be nitrates. NITRATES, nitrates. I will give you all these things in the notes. Do not worry about that one. So the first drugs you will be using nitrates. What the nitrates will do? Suppose one obese patient is there. He is very fatty, and from a very narrow door he has to go. It will be very difficult for him to pass from the narrow door. So what you want to do is, you want to widen the door. You want to stretch the door. So this coronary vessel, the blockage is there. Why? Because of three different reasons. What are those? Fat, platelets and fibrin. So what can be done? Immediately you can dilate the coronary blood vessel. Whether it will help or not, that is the secondary thing. Because if the total blood vessel is being blocked, then definitely even if you stretch the coronary blood vessel, it is not going to help you. But you will try with the very first drug. What is the drug? That is nitrates. And just remember, the particular drug which we are using is glyceryl trinitrate. Okay, this drug you will use 0.6 milligram. This is always there in emergency, in all emergency trolley. And this particular drug you must know, because it is a life-saving drug. So this particular drug you will be giving sublingually, beneath the tongue. Why you want to give beneath the tongue? Because you want the action of the drug to come quickly. Immediately it will be absorbed in the blood vessel. Secondly, if you are giving any drug orally, it will go in the stomach, it will be absorbed from the intestine, will go into the liver, there will be first pass metabolism. It will take further time and the availability of the drug will decrease. So the drug you want to use sublingually to bypass first pass metabolism, and you want the action of the drug come as quickly as possible. The reason why? Because the myocardium is in danger. So this particular drug which you are going to use is glycerol trinitrate, 0.6 milligram. Immediately you will give sublingually. What this drug will do, let us just see one by one. The particular nitrates which you are going to use is, this will increase the guanyl cyclase activity. Guanyl cyclase, okay? What is going to happen? Because of which cyclic AMP will increase. So this particular level will increase, cyclic AMP, because of which it will cause dephosphorylation. Dephosphorylation. Even if you don't remember the steps, do not worry. Everything will be given to you in the notes. Now, once there is a dephosphorylation, what is going to happen? The phosphorus will not be there, and that will result in a smooth muscle relaxation. So just remember, whenever you are giving nitrates, the final result it causes is there is a dilatation of the smooth muscles. What are the smooth muscles which are not in my control? Uterus, stomach, intestine, the coronary blood vessel, all these are smooth muscles. So just remember one thing, what the nitrates will do is, nitrates will result in the dilatation of the coronary blood vessel. Suppose it gets dilated, what is going to happen? Because of the dilatation or because of the stretching of the blood vessel, the oxygen supply to the myocardium will increase. So the very first drug which we use in a patient who has got myocardial infarction is nitrates. And how you are going to give nitrates? Sublingually. What is the mechanism? Whether it breaks down the fibrin? No. Whether it stops the platelet aggregation? No. Whether it decreases atherosclerosis? No. So what it does? It dilates the coronary blood vessel. So what happens once the coronary blood vessel is dilated? Do not mug up the mechanism. Just try to understand the mechanism of the prototype or the main drug in the family. All the other drugs in the family have got similar action. So in the pharmacology, just remember the basic mechanism of the nitrates, which is applicable to all the nitrates. So nitrates, what they are going to do, once you give the nitrates, it causes smooth vessel dilatation. As a result, what will happen? Increase in oxygen supply to the myocardium. So this is the mechanism, right? Point by point the mechanism. Do not write it in a essay fashion. So nitrates causes coronary vessel dilatation. What further it will do? It will cause the dilatation of arteries as well as veins. But nitrates, they are predominantly venodilator. So if the veins are dilated, what will happen? The blood will accumulate in the veins. There will be less venous return to the right auricle. Less blood will go to the right ventricle. So what is going to happen? Because of the venodilatation, the preload will decrease. And if you have read the physiology, whenever the veins are dilated, the blood will accumulate in the veins. There will be less venous return. Less amount of blood will be returning to the right auricle. Less blood will go to the right ventricle. As a result, what will happen? There will be decrease in the preload. Any drug that cause artery dilatation, suppose the arterioles are dilated, it will be easier for the left ventricle to pump the blood. So in medical terminology, any drug which dilates the artery will decrease after load. That means what? It will be easier for the left ventricle to pump the blood. Any drug that dilates vein, that will decrease the preload. So if the preload decreases, suppose you have to do less work, then that means what? You require less oxygen. So any drug that dilates veins, the preload is decreased. That means what? The myocardium has to pump less amount of blood. The oxygen demand of the myocardium will decrease. The chances of necrosis will decrease. So in examination, they are going to ask you why nitrates we are using in a patient who has got infarction, because of two important reasons. The first reason is it causes coronary vessel dilatation, because of which the oxygen supply to the myocardium increases. How it causes coronary vessel dilatation? By increasing guanyl cyclase, cyclic GMP, dephosphorylation, and smooth muscle relaxation. Just the simple mechanism. It will not only cause the coronary vessel dilatation, it will cause the dilatation of smooth muscles wherever they are located in the body. And this dictum you must remember. The second thing is, whenever you are using nitrates, what is going to happen? Because of the use of the nitrates, their blood vessel dilatation is there, venous dilatation is there, decreased venous return, and because of the decreased venous return, what is going to happen? It is easier for the heart to pump the blood. The reason why? Because the preload has decreased. So these are the two important ways by which nitrates are going to help you. The drug which we use is glycerol trinitrate. One thing more, try to remember. Suppose glycerol trinitrate, it is there in bottle. If you take the drug from the bottle, you open the bottle, immediately the drug will evaporate. So it commonly happens in the ward that whoever is opening the bottle, either it is immediately not closed or the bottle is closed very loosely. So one important drawback of glycerol trinitrate is that the drug is coated in the particular tablet, it evaporates. So whenever you are working in the hospital or in the ward, if someone has left the bottle open, then the drug is not going to work at all and it is a dying medical emergency. So make it a point that whenever you are there in hospital or in the wards, always tell the sister and the other pupil that this bottle must be closed closed whenever you are using it, and it must be tightly closed. So this is some drawback of glycerol trinitrate. The action of the drug comes very immediately. Within 1 minute, the action of the drug will come. You have to use the drug sublingually. Just we will see the other drug in the nitrate family, which you want to use is isosorbate dinitrate. Now this particular drug, if you are giving sublingually, it takes time to act. It will take 2-3 minutes and it is a dying medical emergency. So always if you are having glycerol trinitrate, it is better. If you are using isosorbate dinitrate, its action comes late. But what advantage it has got over glycerol trinitrate? That this drug is not going to evaporate. So even if the bottle is loose, there is no harm at all. But the action in emergency will be manifested after 2-3 minutes. This is an important point about isosorbate dinitrate. The third drug is isosorbate mononitrate. Okay, in the market, the drug is available with the name tablet monotrate. So whenever you are using isosorbate mononitrate, this drug action comes very late. So this drug is given orally and the duration of the action of the drug is for 4 to 6 hours. So we never use in medical emergency. Why, you must know? Suppose you don't have glycerol trinitrate and someone else in the hospital is saying, I am having isosorbate mononitrate. It is also nitrate, but it is not going to work in emergency. The reason why, the action of the drug will come after 30 minutes or after 1 hour. So in medical emergency, the drug which is going to work is glycerol trinitrate or isosorbate dinitrate. Out of these two, which will be your choice? It will be always glycerol trinitrate. And what is the mechanism of action? We have already seen. Now, what are the adverse effects of the nitrates? You remember only one, just 1 second, only 1 second. What is the mechanism of action of the glycerol trinitrate? It is causing coronary blood vessel or the smooth muscle dilatation. So if my blood vessels are dilated, see, just try to remember one thing. Whenever, suppose you have got a garden and you want to give water to the plants and you are using a pipe. If the pipe is thin, the pressure will be more. If the pipe is very thick, the pressure will be less. So any drug which will cause the dilatation of the blood vessel or the smooth muscles, it will decrease the blood pressure. Any drug which decreases the force of contraction of the heart, like the beta blocker, it will decrease the blood pressure. Third thing is, any drug which decreases the blood volume, it will decrease the blood pressure. So in examination, suppose if you had been asked about the mechanism of any drug which is decreasing the blood pressure, you are not knowing anything about the drug. You are hearing that particular drug for the first time in the examination. Do not worry. You say, sir, either it decreases the force of contraction of the heart or it dilates the blood vessel, or it decreases the blood volume. So these are the three different ways by which any antihypertensive in the world will work, irrespective of whatever is the mechanism. So whenever you are giving nitrates, what it will do? It is causing a smooth muscle dilatation. So once the smooth muscles are dilated, the blood pressure will fall. That means what? If the blood pressure is less than 90 millimeter, then you will not use nitrate, because nitrates can result in hypotension. Even one of the nitrates, nitroglycerin, it is used in the management of severe hypertension. We will see about this particular drug, nitroglycerin, which is always there in any emergency later on. For the time being, try to remember, nitrates will be contraindicated in hypotension. What do we mean by hypotension? Suppose the patient's BP is 150, his blood pressure is 130 or 110. That doesn't mean he is having any hypotension. Once the blood pressure falls the critical limit, because that must be the particular pressure because of which the oxygen supply to the different tissues can be maintained, that we have taken as nearly 90 millimeter mercury. So if the systolic blood pressure is less than 90, then you are not going to use nitrates. This is the first thing. Secondly, just try to remember one more thing. Suppose you are traveling in a bus and all people are sitting who are very obese, who are very fatty, and they are pushing you. You will feel the pain because the bus cannot stretch. So many pupils are there. Similarly, in the brain, the blood vessels are there, arteries and veins. When you are using nitrates, it will cause smooth muscle dilatation. The blood vessels in the brain will dilate. So if the blood vessels in the brain will dilate, my brain cannot stretch. Why it cannot stretch? Because it has got a skull over it. So the commonest problem which you will have when you are traveling in a bus, when so many obese people are there, is a pain. So similarly, nitrates, as it has resulted in blood vessel dilatation, it will cause pain in the head. So headache. So in the MD entrance examination, most often they ask you, the commonest adverse effect of nitrates is, answer is, it might result in headache. Why it will result in headache? Because it causes a smooth muscle dilatation of the blood vessels in the brain, resulting in headache. So just remember, commonest adverse effect of nitrates is headache. So any patient who is taking nitrates daily because he has got heart attack, he might complain to you, Doctor Sahab, मेरे सिर में बहुत दर्द होता है. Do not go for CT scan or MRI in the brain. You know the particular drug, which is that drug, nitrates. There are many other reasons which can result in headache. We will see it later on once we will be discussing about the management of headache. But for the time being, try to remember the commonest adverse effect of nitrates is headache. Okay? What more can happen? Suppose esophagus is there, stomach and intestine. So whenever you are using nitrate, it is causing the dilatation of smooth muscles in the esophageal sphincter. The reason why it is also a smooth muscle. So what is going to happen? Whenever the patient will take the food, this wall is now open. The food might regurgitate, something called as gastroesophageal reflux disease. What the patient will say, डॉक्टर साहब मैं खाना खाता हूँ, मेरी छाती में बहुत जलन होती रहती है. क्यों जलन होती है? Because the esophageal sphincter, it has become loose. The reason why? Because you are using nitrates. So what is the proper advice you will like to give to all the patients who will have GERD complaints? That they should take food at least 2 hours before they sleep, and after taking the food, they should not lie down in a supine position. They should walk. You will come across many patients in the world who are having GERD symptoms. So in the MSMD entrance examination, one of the important questions for nitrates is, it will increase further the GERD symptoms. It is not going to be helpful. The reason why, it is causing smooth muscle dilatation. So these are all the, and suppose you are giving to a pregnant woman, what the nitrates will do, it is not going to cause the uterine muscle contraction. because uterus is a smooth muscle. Again, it is going to relax the uterine muscle. So if you know the very basic mechanism of nitrates, finally, what are the adverse effects? You can easily tell. Remembering only one line. What is that line? It causes a smooth muscle dilatation. So it may result in decrease in blood pressure. The commonest adverse effect is headache. It will increase further the GERD symptoms. It may, because of the dilatation of the intestine, it might lead to constipation, and so these are the adverse effects of nitrates, which you can easily remember. No need to mug up at all. Pharmacology is very easy if you understand the very basic mechanism. Let us proceed further. So this was all about the nitrates. So what you have done, the heart is there, coronary blood vessel was blocked. And what are the three reasons for blockage? One was because of fat accumulation. The second thing was platelets. And the third thing was fibrin. So these are the three important things which has resulted in the coronary vessel blockage. So until now, what you have done, patient who has got MI, whenever he has come to you, you have checked his oxygen saturation, BP, pulse. Suppose everything is stable, the ECG findings are suggestive of the patient has got myocardial infarction. You have asked the patient to take rest, no need to walk at all. Immediately on arrival, you have given one tablet. Which tablet? GTN tablet beneath the tongue, so that the action of the drug comes quickly and it bypasses the liver. Now what else you will like to do? You know this particular fat, it is tightly adhered with the blood vessel. So in emergency, generally you cannot do much about this particular fat because it has sticked. Because suppose you see in the wall, something is attached firmly, you cannot take it out at that moment. So the fat, as it is already adhered with the blood vessel, in emergency you cannot do much about that one. So what you are going to do further, this particular fibrin which has accumulated, you will try to bombard the particular fibrin and you will like to open it. Because if some drug can break down this particular fibrin, the chances are there the blood supply to the myocardium can be restored as soon as possible. So in emergency, the golden treatment which you need to proceed for within 3 hours, within the golden period, is bombarding this particular fibrin. You are trying your level best to break down this particular fibrin. So how you are going to break down? And let us one by one. So here the fibrin is there. Plasminogen is being converted to plasmin by different drugs. So if plasminogen is converted to plasmin, this plasmin may result in breakdown of the particular fibrin. So all the drugs which are fibrinolytic means, just remember, breakdown of what? Fibrin. In medical terminology, we also call them as thrombolytic. They all have got only one mechanism. The mechanism is very simple. All these drugs, they will convert plasminogen to plasmin. So whenever you are reading about thrombolytic drug, no need to remember each and every drug. Just remember the common mechanism they have got. What is the mechanism? All these drugs will convert plasminogen to plasmin, and this plasmin will result in breakdown of the fibrin. Now just see what are the various drugs which are used. First drug is streptokinase. Next, urokinase. Next, I will give you all these drugs in notes also, don't worry. So even if you are not able to see it clearly, doesn't matter. Try to understand the subject, that is more important. Reticulase. Fourth, taniktaplase. And last, tissue plasminogen activator. So all these drugs, they are called as thrombolytic drugs. They should be used as quickly as possible. And what is the time framework we have already studied earlier? Should be less than 3 hours. And it must be within golden period, because every second counts. And all these drugs, they have got a common mechanism. What is the mechanism? These drugs convert plasminogen to plasmin. But one thing more, streptokinase comes, the cost is around 1,000 rupees. Urokinase around 5,000. I'm not confident about the cost. You can just see it in any pharmacy book. Retiplase, tenecteplase, they cost around 40 to 50,000 rupees. And tissue plasminogen activator, it costs around 1 lakh rupees. But Harrison says, as far as the efficacy is being concerned, there is not much difference in between the drugs. That is what the principles of internal medicine says. But as many of these drugs, they have been discovered in the foreign countries, they are always claiming that tissue plasminogen activator or retiplase or tenecteplase is much better than streptokinase or the other drug in terms of efficacy, in terms of adverse effects. It is what they are saying. But as far as the clinical trials are being concerned, there is not much difference. Why I am saying this, try to understand. In our country, there are many poor people. They cannot afford this particular medicine of 1 lakh. Streptokinase is very commonly used in our country. So as a doctor, whenever you are working in rural places, the various concepts you must know, because when the patient comes who has got heart attack, every second is important. I remember in one of the hospitals where I worked long before, a particular patient was there who has got heart attack. The physician was insisting that proceed for retiplase. It was costing 50,000 rupees. I remember the old lady, she was struggling, she was not having. Every second was being wasted. After half hour also, she was not able to collect that much money. And what could be done? Suppose you are a student or you are a doctor, what you will like to do? Because every second is important. What drug you have used, that is secondary. But the first thing is there, if the patient has got has the heart attack, you need to be quick enough, because every second is important. You want to open the blood vessel as soon as possible. Suppose retiplase is available after 6 hours. The patient borrowed the money from somewhere and the drug came after 6 hours. Is it going to help you much? Not at all. And what has happened? Within 6 hours, a major portion of the myocardium has already died. What will happen to the rest of the life for this particular patient? It will not be a good life, because the patient will have fatigue problem now and then. So you need to be quick enough. You want to use the drug as soon as possible. So the very basic thing must be there. है ना, से आपको बहुत ज्यादा भूख लगी है, पार्ले का बिस्किट है कि गुड्डे का बिस्किट है, क्या फर्क पड़ता है ना? Even if it is a parle biscuit, it is going to work. So first thing, we must know that all these drugs, as far as the standard books are concerned, the efficacy is not, there is no wide gap in the efficacy of all these drugs. So if you are going to use streptokinase, how you are going to use? It is 1.5 million units. 1.5 million units. Okay? This particular streptokinase you will dissolve in 100 ml and you will start the drip. The rate of the drip should be within less than 30 minutes the drug should go. How we give various IV fluids, what should be the rate? There is an important topic, fluid therapy. And in some other class we will see it in detail, because this is very important as far as the critical care is being concerned. But 1.5 million units, that is a streptokinase, you dissolve in 100 ml NS and you want to give the IV infusion over 30 to 50 minutes. What can be the drastic complication of streptokinase? Because it converts plasminogen to plasmin. Not only in the coronary blood vessel, it will break down the fibrin, but the fibrin might be broken down in other parts of the body also. Say in the brain blood vessels, the fibrin is being broken down. The patient can have, because here all the blood vessels are there in my body, injury is occurring daily, but there is no bleeding because platelets or fibrin, they get adhere. So whenever you are using a thrombolytic drug, not necessarily the thrombolytic drug action will be confided in the coronary blood vessel. It might occur in the brain blood vessel also. Now, if this particular blood vessel, in this blood vessel, the fibrin is being broken down, in the brain there can be hemorrhage. One thing remember, in the neurons, no medical science work. It is the God's world only. So if because of a hemorrhage, there is a pressure in the neurons, suppose this is the right side, and there is a left side paralysis. What you can do, you can take this blood out, you can go for a decompression. But even though this surgery is being done, we will see the neurosurgeries later on. Even if the surgery is being done, whether the neurons will recover or not, you do not know. And if the paralysis has occurred, even if the surgery is done within 4 hours, whether the recovery will be there or not, or you do not know. After some days, if the paralysis has already set in, then in future the patient's one upper limb, one lower limb will be paralyzed for the rest of the life. So just remember, brain hemorrhage is a drastic complication, because in neurons, if there is some neurological loss, then we cannot do much. Even the best neurosurgeon in the world can't do much. So just try to remember one thing of all these thrombolytic drugs, because they convert plasminogen to plasmin, the main important serious drawback is it can result in brain hemorrhage. Some say the chances of tissue plasminogen activator causing brain hemorrhage is less. Some other book says it causes more when compared to streptokinase. Forget about that one. Try to remember, when there is an infarction, you need to use the thrombolytic drug as soon as possible within 3 hours. And these are the only drugs which can result in opening of the blood vessel. Whether you will be 100% successful or not when you are using thrombolytic drug, we do not know unless and until you proceed for angiography. But thrombolytic drug should be used within 3 hours, and the important complication will be brain hemorrhage. What are the other complications of thrombolytic drug? It can result in bleeding. From the nose, if the bleeding is there, the patient can have epistaxis. From the urine, if the bleeding is there, hematuria. From the stool, if the bleeding is there, melena. In vomiting, if it is coming, hematemesis. In cough, it is coming, hemoptysis. So the important adverse effect of thrombolytic drug. Again, do not mug up. You know what they are doing? They are converting plasminogen to plasmin, which is resulting in the breakdown of fibrin. So if you know the mechanism, the adverse effect will be, and I do not say always nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. In my examination, my professor used to say, speak any other adverse effect, but do not speak about nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. So what are the adverse effects of thrombolytic drugs? Bleeding. And the most important serious drawback of thrombolytic drug is brain hemorrhage. And what is more important is you need to use them as quickly as possible. The reason why it is so, because if you have not used within 3 hours, or if you are using it very late, so even if you are able to open this particular blood vessel because of the thrombolytic drug, and the blood supply to the myocardium is restored, but within 3 hours, the tissue will already die. So even if you open the blood vessel, it is not going to help you anymore, but the adverse effects can happen. That is the reason why we do not use thrombolytic drug in a patient who has got myocardial infarction after 12 hours, because in 12 hours, everything, whatever has to happen, it has already happened. So we don't use it. But thrombolytic drugs are the mainstay or the golden treatment for a patient who has got myocardial infarction. There is so much of the cost variation. It doesn't matter. In the villages, in the rural places, if you are working, if you don't have tissue plasminogen activator, तो बोलते हैं ना, जहां चाहा वहां रहा. यदि मन में इच्छा है कि दुनिया के लिए कुछ करना है, कुछ सेवा की भावना है, पैसे के प्रति आसक्ति नहीं है, God help you. So just proceed with the treatment. And in our country, so much streptokinase we are using it. Foreign countries books, they always say about that particular drug which they are discovering, and we as an Indian are so much blind, and it is like a rat race. So just try to remember that the mechanism you must know, and you must have a wish for the particular patient. He should be all right, and God gives us blessing. So the thrombolytic drug, the uses you must know. Suppose your parent is there, you don't have the money for some reason or the other, and he gets a heart attack, and you don't have 1 lakh rupees. So do not, it doesn't matter. Ask the doctor that proceed with streptokinase. Whatever happens, I will accept it. It is not that the tissue plasminogen activator cannot cause brain hemorrhage. So this is about the thrombolytic drug. In the examination, you must know their mechanism and their adverse effects. Let us just, we'll just conclude within just some few minutes more. But we have not completed myocardial infarction. There are many things which has to be told. We will take it later on. Suppose myocardium is over here, and one thing here, the fat has accumulated. There are platelets also. So you know the blockage is because of 3 reasons. So you have tried your level best to break down this particular fibrin. So fibrin has accumulated. So you want to break down the fibrin. For the breakdown of fibrin, you have used thrombolytic drug. So just 1 second, we will see one more thing. Now here the blood vessels are there. There is fibrin over here. There is another drug which prevents the fibrin progression. Just try to remember this particular drug. The drug is heparin, Heparin. This drug is available in emergency, and what the heparin will do, it will prevent further fibrin progression. And we will try to understand this particular drug. This is very important because you will come across this particular drug many a times in your life, and it can save the life of many patients. In many emergencies we are using. So just let us complete this particular drug, heparin also. Here liver is there. Liver forms clotting factors. What are those clotting factors? Like 12 is being activated, 11, 9, 10, prothrombin, thrombin. So what heparin will do, these particular factors of which pathway? Intrinsic pathway, like 12, 11, 9, okay, then 10. So all these clotting factors which are already activated, which are going to work, heparin will inactivate them. We know the action of clotting factors. They result in the formation of fibrin. And what is the life of the clotting factor? Just 2 days only. So what heparin will do? It will inactivate. Which factors it will inactivate? All the activated factors. So heparin will inactivate all the activated factors. As a result, what will happen? The fibrin will not be formed. So in a medical emergency, suppose there is a coronary blood vessel, the fibrin has accumulated, heparin will not cause the breakdown of fibrin. It is not fibrinolytic at all. What it will do? It will prevent further fibrin progression. Suppose one car has stopped. What is going to happen? The next car, next car, next car. So once there is a fibrin formation, more and more amount of fibrin will be formed. The reason why? Because the blood flow is not smooth. So heparin is a drug which is not going to cause the breakdown of fibrin, but it will result in further fibrin progression. So again, this particular drug can be used in emergency. How it is working? It inactivates all the activated factors. And how it is being given? It is given either subcutaneously or intravenously, not intramuscularly. We will see all mechanism uses adverse effects of heparin in some other class, but just try to remember, in a patient who has got heart attack, you can use heparin. Again, heparin is available as lower molecular weight and higher molecular weight. Lower molecular weight is very costly, around 500, 600 rupees. Higher molecular weight, hardly it costs 90 rupees, and that you can use for even 3-4 days. And even higher molecular weight heparin efficacy is more than lower molecular weight heparin. But only thing is you need to monitor the INR. Do not worry. What are the various things about heparin? We will see it in some other class. But just try to remember, in a patient who has got heart attack, this particular drug you can use, heparin. How you are going to use? You are going to give subcutaneously or intravenously. Generally, we use 5,000 international units. The drug is heparin. What it is going to do? It inactivates all the activated factors. There is another drug. And I try to remember this particular drug. What is this drug? Warfarin. It is given orally. What this drug will do? It will not allow to activate these factors. Means this warfarin will act on factor. Just remember 1972, a love story. Factor 10972. So all these factors of extrinsic pathway, these factors will, warfarin will not act on the activated factor, but it will prevent the activation of these factors which are not activated. As a result, I know that you are not able to understand because I'm too fast, don't worry, but just try to remember, we will see warfarin in detail in some other class. Just try to remember, warfarin is not acting on the activated factor. It is acting on which factors which are already inactivated. Warfarin will not allow them to be activated. So the factors which are activated, it will work for 2 days. That is the reason why the action of the warfarin comes late. It comes after 2 days. So just remember, in acute emergency, the drug which we use in a patient who has got myocardial infarction is heparin. The reason why the action of the heparin comes immediately because all the activated factors are inactivated and the fibrin formation decreases. There is no further fibrin progression. And what are the adverse effects of heparin? Again, it can result in bleeding, but it cannot result in the dangerous bleeding which can occur because of thrombolytic blood. So remember, this particular drug, heparin, has been grouped in anticoagulants, the drug which result in further fibrin progression. Heparin, warfarin, they are anticoagulants. And again, their adverse effects, they can result in bleeding. So this was all about how you are going to take action against the particular fibrin that has been formed. We will just take 5 minutes more. Now here the heart is there and coronary blood vessels. There the platelets have got adhered. There is a platelet aggregation. Now one drug is there, that is aspirin. Now we will see this particular drug, aspirin. It belongs to the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug. Now what aspirin does, all drugs which belong to the family of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, it inhibits the cyclooxygenase enzyme. Just remember the word cyclooxygenase. We will see non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug in detail in some other class. For the time being, try to remember aspirin inhibits cyclooxygenase enzyme. As a result, there is decrease in prostaglandin. And what the prostaglandin do? There are two types, TXA2 thromboxane and PGI2. Okay? Now what TXA2 will do? Thromboxane A2, it causes platelet aggregation. What PGI2 will do? It inhibits platelet aggregation. So just remember, in simple terms, the aspirin, it inhibits cyclooxygenase enzyme. It decreases prostaglandin formation. And what the aspirin will do? It decreases TXA2. So once TXA2 is decreased, the platelet aggregation will not occur. And once the PGI2 will increase, the platelet aggregation will not occur. So in simple terms, aspirin is a drug which inhibits the platelet aggregation. It is a very cheap, and aspirin was the very first drug which came in the market. Still, it is the most important antiplatelet drug. You have got many other antiplatelet drugs which are very costly. ना जैसे कहा जाता है ना कि old is gold. ठीक इसी प्रकार से aspirin is a very old drug, but still it is the most preferred drug as an antiplatelet drug. So just remember, don't be crazy to use the new drugs which are coming in the market. They are very costly. Their packets must be very good, but they have not gone through the phase 4 clinical trials now. Because most of the drugs which are new in the market, many of the adverse effects come after they are being launched. So a clinician who is using old drug is much better compared to the clinician who is using the new drug. If you don't have any treatment for an illness, then definitely you can use the new drug. So just remember, aspirin is the most important drug. It is an antiplatelet drug. It inhibits the platelet aggregation. Next, how you are going to use? I was giving the interview for the army, and then they asked me how much dose aspirin you are going to use. No need to remember every drug dose, but some drugs you must remember. For example, a patient is there in the emergency, you want to use aspirin. Why? Because the platelet aggregation should be stopped. The blood supply to the myocardium is decreasing. So you must know the dose, because in emergency you don't have even time to open the book. So aspirin, the dose is, remember, 75 milligram, 4 tablets stacked. Okay? Or if you have got 150 milligram tablet, then 2 tablets, 300 milligram, then 1 tablet. you will ask the patient to chew the tablet. Why you want to chew? Because it is an emergency. If the drug is broken down in the particles, the moment aspirin, which is an acidic drug, goes in the stomach, immediately it will be absorbed. So if the patient is conscious, you will ask the patient to chew the tablet. And this drug must be there in the emergency. There should not be excuse that you are writing aspirin and I have seen the patient is going outside to procure it. It must be available round the clock in emergency. There is no excuse. Hardly it costs 50 paisa, 1 rupee. If the patient is going to procure it from outside, searching door to door from one pharmacy to the other, how many minutes it will be wasted? So in casualty trolley, in emergency, whenever you are there in the emergency, you must check whether all the things are working there or not. It is not that you are entering in a casualty and in an emergency and you are busy with your phone call talking to your friends. Those people who work round the clock with devotion, they talk very less and they do much more in the world. And finally, the world remembers them. The reason why? They were sincere for their work. So this particular drug, aspirin, you must remember how you are going to give it. And what is the adverse effect of the aspirin? It inhibits the platelet aggregation. So again, it can result in bleeding, but it is not resulting in that dangerous bleeding which was there in thrombolytic. So again, a patient, I remember, and one of my teachers was there. His father was taking aspirin and he was having bleeding in the stool. He did not take notice for that one, and he was having severe anemia. तो जब भी आप किसी को एस्पिरिन दोगे, आप उनको कहोगे भाई साहब आपको यदि कभी ब्लड आता है कहाँ पे, स्टूल में, कैसे पता चलेगा? If someone is passing blood in the stool will become black color, है ना? If there is chances that the patient is passing blood in the stool, you will stop the aspirin. And aspirin should be stopped ideally before any planned surgery, at least 3 days before or at least 2 days before. So this particular aspirin is being given. All non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, what are their adverse effects? They decrease prostaglandin. What the prostaglandin will do? Prostaglandin tells the stomach, do not produce much acid. ना prostaglandin stomach को बोलता है ज़्यादा acid मत बनाओ. So whenever the prostaglandin decreases, what is going to happen? Stomach will result in more production of acid. Suppose a teacher is there in the class, everyone is in silence. The moment the teacher leaves, the students, they will start shouting. Similarly, whenever the prostaglandin is there, it asks the stomach wall, do not produce much acid. Once the prostaglandin will decrease because of aspirin, so much production of acid. So all that acid will bombard the stomach epithelium. So what problem will the patient will have? That will be acidity, burning pain in the stomach. So all the patients who take the aspirin, the commonest adverse effect they suffer from is not bleeding. What is the commonest adverse effect? They say that they have got acidity. They say they have got abdominal pain. So this is the commonest adverse effect of aspirin. So how we give aspirin, you have known. What are the adverse effects you have known. One more drug is there. Just we are going to conclude very shortly. The other drug is clopidogrel. Now what the clopidogrel will do? Suppose this is a platelet and here some ADP receptors are there. Now clopidogrel will block the ADP receptor. It will sit on the ADP receptor. With this ADP receptors, one platelet bind with the other platelet. So the platelet aggregation is occurring because of the ADP receptor. Clopidogrel will sit on the ADP receptor. In medical terminology, we will say clopidogrel blocks the ADP receptor. So once the ADP receptors are being blocked, the clopidogrel aggregation will not occur. The platelets aggregation will not occur. So clopidogrel also prevents platelet aggregation, but by a different mechanism, not the same mechanism as that of aspirin. See, different religions are there, but where all religions will take us? To the God only. So all different ways, but the common goal is to the Almighty, to the Supreme Soul. Similarly, aspirin and clopidogrel will act by different mechanisms, but the final aim is to prevent the platelet aggregation. What is the advantage of clopidogrel? Because it is not a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, it doesn't have action on prostaglandin. So what is the advantage of clopidogrel? It will not cause acidity, it will not cause burning pain, but a little bit it is costlier than aspirin. But you can't say it is more efficacious. So those patients who have got severe gastrointestinal problem because of aspirin, you can start them on clopidogrel, or if they have got certain adverse effects of by aspirin, like hypersensitivity reaction or aggravation of bronchial asthma. How we will give clopidogrel in emergency? 75 milligram, 2 tablets to chew, and the reason why, the drug should be absorbed immediately. So these are the two drugs, aspirin and clopidogrel, we use in emergency who has got myocardial infarction. Just one more thing. For preventing this one, cholesterol or the atherosclerosis, you can start the patient on atorvastatin. This belongs to the family of statin. Okay? How the various statin is acting, how they are decreasing the cholesterol synthesis, we will see it later on. For the time being, and these drugs, they act on the enzyme HMG-CoA reductase enzyme. We will see what are the adverse effects of statin later on. For the time being, try to remember the statins again you are going to use on a daily basis so that the atherosclerosis decreases. They will not be of much help in emergency, but all those patients who have got heart attack, more often than not, who have got hypercholesterolemia, we start them on statins. Another thing is, suppose I have got severe pain, there is too much of the pain. What can happen? Because of severe pain, there can be vagal stimulation, there can be vasodilatation, and the blood pressure might fall. So one thing, just try to remember, a patient who has got heart attack, there is severe pain, and as if many buildings are being placed above the body. And because of this pain, the patient may go in shock because of vasodilatation. So you need to take care of this particular pain. For any pain in allopathy, you have got only two group of drugs. We will discuss about these group of drugs later on. But what are those groups? One is non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. The other is opioids. Now, opioids have got serious adverse effects. So one of the adverse effects is respiratory center suppression. We will discuss about opioids and NSAID in some other class. For the time being, try to remember, whenever the patient has got severe chest pain, he has got heart attack, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, they have got limitation. They cannot work in severe pain. In severe pain, when the patient has got heart attack or secondary to multiple trauma or because of injury or crush injury or because of burn injury, in all those conditions, we use opioids, even though there are many adverse effects of the opioids, which we will discuss later. So in emergency, you can use morphine. Okay, morphine injection is there. Intravenously, you can use it. You can also use pethidine, pentagocin, but many textbooks says that they cause tachycardia, they should not be used. But if you don't have any other opioid, many times morphine is not available in the hospital, you can use them. So but this particular opioids, they exacerbate vomiting. And you want to decrease the vomiting, for that you can use promethazine. It is an H1 antihistaminic. The patient will be sedated, and because of the decreased anxiety also, the heart will not pump more, the oxygen demand by the myocardium will decrease. So in addition to the morphine, there is a common practice of giving promethazine. How H1 antihistaminics act? What are the various antihistaminics? What are their mechanism, adverse effects? That also will be discussed later on. So for the time being, let us wrap up what we have understood within 2-3 minutes. Whenever a patient comes to you who has got heart attack, you know that something is in danger. What is in danger? Myocardium. And immediately you do the ECG. We have not seen how to do the ECG. We will see it later. And once you do the ECG, what you are finding? Something ST elevation and T-wave inversion. And once you have found all those things, you come to conclusion that the patient has got heart attack. You need to be quick enough. What you are doing? You are trying to inhibit the platelet aggregation by using which drugs? Aspirin, clopidogrel. You are trying to break down the fibrin. That is the most important step, by using thrombolytic drugs. And a period is being associated by them. What is that period? Golden period. And how the various thrombolytic drugs are acting, we have already seen. What more you are going to do? Suppose that if the blood pressure is falling, then you are using inotropic drugs, noradrenaline, dopamine, etc. despite the very fact that these drugs will increase the oxygen demand. If the patient develops some arrhythmia like ventricle fibrillation, you need to take care of these arrhythmias. You need to do something for the arrhythmia, because if ventricle fibrillation is there, the patient may die within few seconds. How we treat arrhythmia, we will see it later on. But anti-arrhythmic drugs and the defibrillator machine, you must have in the emergency. Whatever the cholesterol that has accumulated, you are using statins. The patient has got pain, you are using opioids. All these things you are doing just trying to save one important thing, which is supplying oxygen to different parts of the body. And what is that? Myocardium. It should not be there that you are not able to read the ECG, or these drugs are not there with you in emergency. And what more you have done? Whenever the patient has come to you in emergency, immediately you have caused coronary vessel dilatation. By using which drug? Nitrates. Secondly, once the patient has got MI, you ask him not to walk at all. Use the wheelchair. And definitely you have started the oxygen supply also. What main thing can happen? Despite the best treatment, if the myocardium is being necrosed, the patient will have the loss of left ventricle ejection fraction, which will be depicted in the echocardiography. That is the reason why there is a dying medical emergency heart attack, and the patient might die. The patient may go in cardiac arrest also. Suppose the heart has stopped beating, patient is unconscious, no BP, no pulse, no respiration. So in all this particular setting, the knowledge of basic life support and the RDBO, advanced cardiovascular life support, comes into play. We have not seen BLS, ACLS now. Suppose the pulse is not there, respiration is not there, patient has landed in cardiac arrest, then you cannot do all these things. Then you have to do CPR and all those cardiac compressions and ventilation. We will see all BLS, ACLS later on. But for the time being, at least as a second year student, at least as a pharmacology, when you are having as a subject, you must know about nitrates, you must know about thrombolytic, you must know about antiplatelet, you must know about anticoagulants like heparin. Why you must know? Not for this reason that you have to pass the examination, but there are many people in the world who are having these problems. At least the particular life which the God has given could be of some help to them. And the very basic things you must understand thoroughly. There should not be mugging up. Do not read as if you have to complete the book. Read that the time you grow up, you become a doctor. Patients come, they are in trouble, they are sick, and they have got so many problems. They can share you can help them. So once the particular destination or the focus is being set rightly, you will become wonderful doctors in the world, irrespective of whether you are from a poor family. I remember one of my colleagues, he was just the son of a barber, but he is a wonderful he is now a wonderful doctor. So with this particular aim, we will proceed to the next class whenever it will be assigned. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Om Shanti.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the marathon lecture, sir. Dear students and viewers, if you have any queries, you can unmute yourself and ask the queries. Sir, please wait a minute. If there is any queries, we may answer it.
Yeah, I'm waiting. Please take your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the wonderful lecture, sir. There are no queries from the viewers. We shall wind up with this, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot for that.
Thank you.